Welcome, YouTube. It's Trevor here, and VCT Pacific Stage 2 begins this week. That means we have to figure out who's going to be the best at this thing, and of course, who's also going to try to make their way all the way to VCT Champions. Now, as a reminder, this year's Stage 2 is a little bit different. There's this extra play-in stage in the middle where some of the best challengers teams in the overall area are going to be able to compete against them to try to get a chance to make a run all the way to Champions, etc. But we're not going to dive too deep into that. Like, we'll do those predictions when the bracket comes out, etc. after the group stage is over. But we're going to do two things today because we did a quick power ranking or tier list on Plat Chat last night. And I didn't quite like how we did it. I think we did it just for the sake of time and just to give a better idea. But when you're trying to figure out both who the strongest teams are, but also rank them in placement, you start to take into account a lot of different things. So we're going to do two things today on this video. First, we're going to do a tier list, and this is going to be just who I think is the strongest and who I think is the weakest, right? Who's the team to beat? Who do I think is just, has the highest stats, basically. Now, and then when we do the actual placement rankings, what do I predict the final placements to be after play-ins, playoffs, right? And then who's in the grand finals, things like that. That's going to be more of a prediction of the actual ranking because, that could be different. Like the strongest team, I could think that maybe they'll have fatigue. Maybe they won't, want to show all their cards, whatever it might be. So we're going to do two things. We'll do the overall tier list first. Now, just to get it out of the way, although I've noticed that it doesn't matter how many times you say it, maybe I'll have to make sure it's just on the screen the whole time. S rank means these are the teams to beat, right? This is the rank where I just think these are the teams you're most proud of for the region. Like there's no one should have any arguments about them potentially being the representatives for this region, things like that. Then A tier. These are going to be teams that I think are very strong. Like these are strong teams, but perhaps, there's a little bit of a consistency thing or something like that. But these are also teams that should be contenders to, punch up to be the top 1, 2, maybe 3. B tier is going to be old reliable. These are reliable teams. They're good teams. They play good Valorant, but I'm not really seeing anything that gives them an edge overall, right? I'm not seeing them maybe have a very distinct style or anything like that. C tier is going to be basically the dark horse team. This is where things can get a little bit mushy, in my opinion, right? Some teams could be punching up. Maybe these have teams that have potential to actually just shoot all the way to the top. These also has teams that maybe just aren't consistent enough, and I'm a little bit concerned that they could drop all the way to the bottom. So that's going to be the whole mix-up tier. And then there is a D tier where, I just don't think that you have an argument to be placed anywhere else, and you are just actually below everybody else. Okay, so without further ado, S tier, obviously Paper X is here. It doesn't matter that, they might have fatigue for the whole year, etc. They've shown that they are the best team in Pacific this year. I don't think there's any argument against that. If they were to fight any of these teams 10 times, they should always be winning, in my opinion, probably 7 or more times, right? Maybe 6, depending, but they shouldn't ever have less than 50% favorability against any team at any point in the year. So from what they've shown, the individual talent, they have been growing, they have been building their macro. Yes, have they quote unquote choked, some of the important matches, the grand finals that they've had this year? True. But does that mean that they are suddenly not the best team in Pacific? False. So I think Paper X absolutely is the team to beat. They are the team that no matter what placement they go as, everyone in Pacific should be, well, of course, we're glad that Paper X is representing VCT Pacific. Now, I've kind of thought about, should there be more teams up here? For instance, obviously, bias aside, right? Forget about the bias. Taking a look at their performance at EWC, I think Nongshim has looked good. I think they've finally figured out another groove, right? They've kind of figured out their own style and, I guess, favor, right? What they like within the current meta. Looking at how they did at EWC. Now, I'm not going to discount EWC performances just because it's EWC. Obviously, I didn't cover it for my own reasons, personal reasons, etc. But regardless, what you did is what you did. You still prepped for it, especially teams who, went further in. I would assume that you've put in work. So I think you do have to take that into account. However, it is also not exactly it's not the same map pool, right? Everything's not going to be the same. It's not a double elim. You're playing against other region teams as well, and not everyone was performing in it. So I don't want to put too much weight in it. So while a team like Nongshim does look like they've figured out how to look a little bit stronger, and in my heart, I think they can be, by the end of stage 2, they might solidify themselves as a team in S tier, and people will be like, okay, Nongshim's back at the top. Perhaps it's not quite yet proven. T1's another one of those teams. So I'm going to put both of these teams in A rank. Very, very strong, has all the solid bases to prove that they are a strong team. But are there these gaps that we can absolutely identify? For Paper X, the only one that I think everyone would agree on is, well, they couldn't close out the finals this year. And it's like, okay, I mean, that's not a giant hole, right? I mean, yes, it's a crack, but it's not like a giant flaw. But for these two teams, it could be that, sometimes their macro seems like they're really just relying on heroics, and that's kind of a crapshoot when you're up against other teams like Paper X. T1, it seems like a lot of people have questions. Now, I actually think there are concerns for their roster change. I do. And the intangible of Carpe leaving, I think, is actually a pretty big impact. However, I also think, in a way, if they just lean into their strengths, which is going to be mechanics and individual game sense, it could actually be better, especially in the short term with DH coming in. Now, the supposed assumption, I don't think there's been anything official, because the official announcement they had for Stage 2 was a 6-man roster, with DH now just being called up, and that's the only difference. And then Carpe, of course, no longer being officially part of the roster. But with that 6-man roster, the assumption is that Stacks will be the one stepping out, right, on the bench. I think that's what the report was on Sheepy Sports as well. Actually, now it's been a little while, so I'd have to go back and check. But anyway, I think you'd have to assume that DH will be starting and playing, because otherwise, why would you call him up? So DH proved that he was an absolutely sharpshooter last year. Now, I do think they kind of gave him a lot more freedom and comfort last year, which is why he was able to perform. So will they choose to do that again or not? Obviously, we'll have to see, but I think he's obviously going to be a very, very good player, very good addition. Izu has been one of the best players in Pacific, in my opinion, for the whole year. And while I am one of those people that think T1 had an easy group last stage, you can't deny that they performed well, right? They went through and got the wins they needed, and I would say that they overall proved that they were a strong team. And then you look at the roster, and it's hard to really ever rank them below A, in my opinion, because they're not like they're fine. They're not a fine team like B tier. They have cracked players. If anything, they should always be doing better than how they've done in certain parts of the year. So I just think T1 should be up there. If we're to put this in relative order, I guess I would still put Nongshim above, just because of what we're seeing with Xross now being that secondary duelist, having that flexibility. Francis going back to initiator, where he can actually make some of these big, impactful power plays when needed on a timing. But otherwise, he's also focused on the calling. It also gives him that freedom to make some of those aggressive calls and give that little sauce that Nongshim used to have back when they were SPG. This also means that RB can just be kind of more of that reliable anchor style player, right? Similar to what you're oftentimes expecting from someone like Mako on KRX. So overall, I think it's good changes, and I think it really strengthens them. It looks like Ivy's coming back into form. Now, every time I say that, he seems to struggle a little bit, and then he comes right back into form. But I've always rated Ivy pretty highly. Maybe it's a nerves thing, whatever else it might be. Maybe it's a meta thing. But I think they've finally figured out, okay, this is our color again in the current meta. Now, the one big question mark I would have for Nongshim is it does seem to rely on just going back to the Neon for Dombi. And that's not a bad thing. Dombi's very good at the Neon, even though Neon's nerfed, and other people have proven that Neon is still good. So it's like, okay, that's fine. But how long does that last, right? And how much of it is really on the Neon? Because I think that can get targeted, especially now with the current Neon. I think you can target the Neons a little bit from anti perspective. So I'd have question marks about how long does that last? Like, let's say they make it to Champions. Could that still be strong enough to be reliable at Champs? Maybe not, but right now we're talking about Stage 2. So I think they found a good groove, and the game shouldn't have too many big changes during Stage 2 at least, that it completely gets shuffled up. Now, old reliable. It's easy. We don't have the new logo for KRX on this one. That's my bad. I just took someone else's template. So my apologies, KRX. My apologies, Kiyum. I know that there's supposed to be a little pink and purple in here. But listen, I know Sliggy went on that whole rant about how they've been disappointing, and I agree. I think the biggest thing, I think the reason some people feel this way is because KRX, or back in the day DRX, used to be the team where you could just say, listen, this team you can watch and know that they're going to play good Valorant. They've got a good playbook. They understand the core parts of each map and map theory. They understand the basics and fundamentals of macro. And then they've got a couple star players. That used to be DRX, right? The biggest flaw DRX ever always had was they just didn't have that extra oomph. They didn't have that extra punch. They didn't have that extra sauce. And, they just couldn't really punch all the way to the top. This year, they've been messy. I mean, they've been a messy squad. They've played some messy Valorant. They've relied a lot on heroics. They've relied on just kind of all-inning and, just running with these playbooks that seem to just roll the dice a little bit. And I would like to think that a part of that is because of all the roster nonsense that they've been dealing with. But I think they should be. You've had a year now. I think you look at whether you like them or not, you look at what the coaching staff has accomplished in the past. They've always been able to eventually find their footing. If anything, they've always actually been able to look like they're slightly ahead going into like stage 2 into champions, because they've spent the year trying to figure out what's best for the team. And they've always gotten to that point where it's like, ooh, they're like, okay, this is a team that's kind of built for champs, really. That's kind of their style. You build up over time, and then you get a good foundation, and then you have some strength going into the last stretch. If you were to believe that leadership can still do something similar, I'm not saying that they've been winning international trophies, because they haven't, but if you believe that they can do something similar, if you believe that Mako is still one of the best controllers that you could find, if you believe that Hyunmin still has the ceiling for one of the best duelists in Pacific, things like that, I mean, I think it's okay to think that they're going to be a good old reliable team, right? They should be a strong playoffs team type beat. Could they? Yeah, sure. Could they beat these teams above them? Absolutely. But we're not expecting them to, but we expect them to be, all right, you're right there. You've got your own style. You've got strong players. You've kind of covered all the check marks, so to speak. So that's where I see DRX. Now, Full Sense, I'm actually going to put Full Sense up here. You know what? I messed that up. Full Sense is going to be in Tier A. Now that I'm thinking about it, Full Sense, I started the year by ranking them pretty low. The biggest thing was they're not going to have direction. Obviously, at the beginning of the year, they didn't even have an experienced IGL. So you didn't have an IGL. Cruz sure is coaching, but he hasn't coached before. Yes, I know he was more or less a playing coach, but I think that's very different from being a head coach. So there were a number of things here with Full Sense at the beginning of the year that made me doubt them regardless of individual talent. Now, nothing has ever changed that the individual talent on this team is very high. I mean, Primi alone just carries it a lot. I mean, we saw that at London as well. So, and then I would say that, at London, maybe some of the other guys, they didn't have the experience, etc. But you go back to Pacific, a lot of these guys have put up some big numbers in the past, right? You look at Kilo. I mean, Jit Boys was coming back into some crazy duelist form. I mean, there's been a lot here. So that looks good. I also think Sephiroth, usually for people who followed the Challenger scene before, generally ranked Sephiroth higher than Leviathan. I mean, I've always liked both, but I think that's just how they've proven themselves over the past courses of their career. So Sephiroth now being part of the starting roster, I think is good news. And then you have Frost joining them to give that leadership. And the core of this roster knows how Frost operates. Cruz knows how Frost operates. So that kind of friction that you often expect from someone like Frost as a coach, from what we've heard and seen from his coaching style, that shouldn't be as much of a deterrent anymore, because they should be very well aware of how this is going to work, how this relationship is going to work. And as far as we're concerned, it sounds like Full Sense wanted Frost as well. It wasn't kind of like I guess we'll have to bring Frost back or something like that. It was like, okay, this guy is someone that we really do need. Okay, so I mean, to me, then it's like, well, individual talent was up here. It was really just the macro and figuring out the team part of it. You've got someone who's proven that this is what they're good at, right? You can bring this up to a certain par. So even if Frost is able to just bring it up to par, I think now the individual talent really shines. If anything, I'm kind of inclined to put Full Sense above T1. I think that's fine, actually. I think that's fine. You know what? Even without the coaching staff, when they leaned into their individual mechanics, they went to London. I think this is fine. Yeah, I don't know why I kind of skipped them over. Yeah, let's put Full Sense here. I think Full Sense is the team. I mean, basically, for those who followed me for the year, Full Sense is now taking GE's spot in my heart, right? Where I used to always just be like, you gotta hold hope for GE because the ceiling's super high. That's Full Sense now, and that makes it sound like I just think, okay, Frost, no matter what, he's always gonna have that mark. I do rate Frost quite highly. I think Frost's biggest strength is that he's able to bring up the messy individual talent into team form. Now, does he oftentimes seem to want to overachieve, and that's what holds them back, like his team's back? Yes, I also think that that's true. But I just think the individual, everyone said that the individual talent of Full Sense was very strong, so I don't think this is a shock. Yeah, so Nongshim Full Sense T1, DRX Old Reliable. I'm going to put GE here. I actually would have bigger concerns for GE, honestly, but I still think Javi's a great IGL. I still think individually they have really good talent. And I think I would hope that none of the basics that they built up while Frost was there fall apart. Like, you still retain that, and then you just, go in whatever direction now that you wanted to go in. So I think GE will still kind of be this gatekeeper team, but I do rank them a lot lower. It's not, I mean, in some ways, I think they might perform better in the matches they win, even, but not having that extra layer, I think you'll just beat the teams you're supposed to beat harder, is kind of how I see GE now. And I don't know if they'll have that edge to beat other teams. I think they'll actually be exposed a bit more by the better teams now. So I have some big question marks about that, but we'll see. But obviously the player roster hasn't changed, so the individual talent we've seen is also quite high on GE. So I don't think that changes. Most people, I think, would probably prefer this, but I mean, I think this is kind of just how I feel about both of these teams right now. Now, I think that's about it. Let's talk RQ. RQ normally would be the team that should be right in B tier. I'm going to put them at the top of C tier. They should be in B, but for whatever reason, they haven't even been able to consistently give us the belief that they are that solid team that just is the gatekeeper, the average of, like, this should be what textbook is in Pacific. You should be able to beat this if you want to try to contend for, a higher ranking. They haven't been able to prove that this year. It seems like it's taking a lot longer than some of us thought for Jovi and the roster to find the right chemistry. I'm not saying that there's, like, that the vibes are bad. I'm just saying that style and goal and vision, sometimes it takes longer than you expect. So it seems like that change has affected them a little bit. Also, I think part of that is how the meta shifted for this year. Very aggressive, double duelist, kind of all-in style being easier to execute. And so maybe that's where the difference is coming in, where some people think you should be leaning harder into that. Some people aren't used to that, whatever else it might be. But they did make a change. Now, I think Zan is a slight upgrade, but more or less a side grade. It just depends on if you think it's going to be more reliable or not. That's how I view Zan. So, but therefore, I trust Jovi and Warbirds as coaches. And therefore, I think it's like a slight upgrade or side grade, but they've made that decision. They felt that they needed that extra injection coming into stage 2. And so that gives me faith that they should be okay. But also, they could just still be floundering. Like, they're not going to be bad ever, but everyone else could just be getting better, and they could still not be catching up, in which case they would be in this tier of, like, they're just fluctuating. So that's why I'm going to keep RQ there. I think Gen G, with the roster changes and the individual talent, with Karen going back to comfort, with Ash going back to some comfort on initiators, you're expecting that Texture should be more free to do what he needs, and things like that. It sounds like Zinx, is stepping away because of a wrist injury as well. So Rascal, was that always part of the plan or not? We don't know, but I think Rascal will be fine as a secondary duelist or main entry even, right? Like the dive duelist, so that Texture can do his thing. So I think, they have the potential to shoot up to, like, at least in terms of, placement somewhere around here. On a good day, maybe they could even challenge these teams. Now, Varel and Secret. I'm kind of excited for these teams. I mean, Varel is mostly the Foxy 9 factor, but is that enough to kind of give them some grounding and a confidence boost? I would hope so. Secret, honestly, I think Secret could be the team that actually just solidifies themselves like right here by the end of the stage, where it's just like play some standard good old Valorant. You're reliable. You're oftentimes playing that 2-1. You've got, 3-4 maps that you're like solid on, and that's about it. Like I can see them getting there, and then you've got a couple talented players, but maybe not quite being refined enough. With what's reported to be the changes they're making to wrap up the entire roster, with Coach Spin coming in, kind of bringing in some of those factors from the old Motive squad with Styron, things like that coming in as an IGL. That's none of that has been official yet. They just made the official announcement for Remura and Berserks. But all of that considered, I think it should be pretty good. Now, the only one I guess would be kind of Borkum, but I think Borkum might even be... Borkum has also been reported. But if Borkum comes in, I think Borkum could also be maybe even extra reason why I think, yeah, they could be a solid B-tier team. So I actually think... Now, the only thing is becoming a solid B-tier team isn't like the most exciting thing in the world. So that's why I'm not like hyping them up too much. But I do think they have a lot of potential to be a lot better than what people are thinking, because everyone's just assuming that they're down here. But yeah, I mean, okay, listen, in terms of consistency, I actually think Secret might have a better... Well, I don't know. Farrell's so talented, man. I hope Farrell does well. They're so talented. They just got to figure it out. And then we got DFM and Zeta. DFM talent-wise should be here. Let's put them here. Yeah, sorry, Zeta. But DFM talent-wise should be here. They really should. They just need a little more flexibility, like in the server, not in roles. They just need a little bit more flexibility, like just a teeny tiny bit, and then they can be so good. But so this is that rank where, yeah, you could punch up for sure. You've got the talent and potential. We're just not seeing it to be reliable enough. But we'll put DFM there, and then Zeta. I'm sorry, Zeta guy. I just can't. I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing the vision. I'm not seeing the ceiling even. It's tough. It's tough out here for Zeta. But for Zeta fans, you've had a lot of time. Let's hope. All right. So with that said and done, so this is overall how I think the power levels are of the teams for Stage 2. Just overall in Stage 2. Now, where do I think the teams will actually place? Well, this is a ridiculous thing to do because we don't even know how the bracket's going to work out. We don't know how it's all going to shake up after the group stage, but let's give it a whirl anyway. So, number one, who do I think is going to win VCT Pacific Stage 2? Damn. I'm going to say we're winning it. Listen, these guys are feeling it. I think they really want to prove themselves. And I think that drive, plus they've kind of figured out their own style, should work. I think Francis back on the calling is actually going to be good for them. And I think RB will actually maybe even be able to perform, more to what the team needs now with that being shifted. But I think this will be good. Second place, I think, will be PaperX. I think PaperX will still have all the things they need to be a top 2 team. I mean, there's not really much more to say to that. Third place. I'm going to go with Full Sense. Let's do this. Nongshim finally beats Full Sense in the grand finals. Let's do that. Because this just makes third place easier for me by putting PaperX. And then I think T1 will still be top 4. Now, afterwards... Damn, do I really think Team Secret's going to be that low? I'm like so low on GE, honestly. Frost was such a big part of why I believed in that team. I really like the players still. I really like the roster still. But I just think there's no one there to really put it together. I mean, this is really just my power ranking. Do I feel good about that? So here's the thing. I think these two will be top 4 no matter what. I think these two will have not only the skill to punch up, but also the drive, because they really want to solidify them to go to champs. So I think the top 4 is just how you order it. I don't think this really changes much. But if that's the case, now I do think Veryl's going to surprise a lot of people. I think Genji might be lower. But I do think Carrick's just going to kind of crawl back up into being, all right, yeah, they're a contender. And then I think I'm just torn because I think Secret can still do well. But as much as I'm down on GE, do I think GE goes down to bottom 3? I mean, I would hope not. I would hope not. It's the same thing with DFM as well. Do I think DFM could punch up above these other teams? I'm just not so sure. Let's go with this. Put some Genji Veryl Hopium in here. This is what I think the final placements will be. Nongshim wins stage 2. Let's freaking go. Full sense, they finally fall to Nongshim. Frost finally tastes defeat at the hands of Nongshim for the first time ever in the grand finals, but they still go to champs on their own merit by getting top 2. Paper X, listen, they're kind of building up. They're still going to try, but they're building up towards champs, working on the things they need to work on. They eventually fall in the lower finals. T1, I think they'll just be more consistent, but they won't have that like extra edge. I mean, I just don't know. I really want to know how they look. I honestly don't know how T1's going to play. I have no idea what style they're going to play anymore either. Like, only because I say this because I think they could play so many different styles. Like, could they go back to Meteor really being the key player? They could. Could they go back to, Munchkin being the crazy lurk timing caller? They could. Could they go full ham double duelist? They could. Like, they could do so many different things that I'm just not sure. I'm just not sure what to expect from them. But KRX, I think, will just kind of be that they'll find that reliable playbook. I think Genji, I mean, they have to go all in. They have to go all in. I think Texture and Caron will be giga motivated in their comfort roles. Veryl, I've got some big hopes that they'll finally be able to unlock that talent. I think RQ, I'm pretty low on. And then GE, I'm very low on. Secret, I'm actually higher on, but I can't justify them being above RQG. If anything, it would be Veryl, but since I'm ranking Veryl pretty high, and then DFM Zeta. So this is what I think final placements will look like. Let's put it this way so people aren't confused. Final placement predictions. And there you go. That's what I think is going to happen in Stage 2. Let me know down in the comments below what you think, or who you think actually is going to win Stage 2. Not who the best team is. Who do you think is going to win VCT Pacific Stage 2? And of course, watch parties will return starting this Thursday when the matches begin for VCT Pacific. We'll be watching, I want to say all the matches for Pacific, but there might be a couple of days that I've got an overlap, so I might not be able to watch party. But we'll be sure to catch, all of them as much as we can. So we hope to see you there. That's going to be it for this one, and we'll see you next time.